As the coffee was being poured, the Count wondered whether this was the beginning or end of the old man's day. Either way, he figured a cup of coffee would hit the spot. For what is more versatile? As at home in tin as it is in Limoges, coffee can energize the industrious at dawn, calm the reflective at noon, or raise the spirits of the beleaguered in the middle of the night. "It's perfect," said the Count. The old man leaned forward. "The secret is in the grinding." He pointed to a little wooden apparatus with an iron crank. "Not a minute before you brew." The Count raised his eyebrows with the appreciation of the uninitiated. Yes, in the open air on a summer night, the old man's coffee was perfect. In fact, the only thing that spoiled the moment was a humming in the air, the sort that might be emitted from a faulty fuse or a radio receiver. "Is that the tower?" the Count asked. "Is what the tower?" "The humming." The old man looked up in the air for a moment, then cackled. "That'll be the boys at work." "The boys?" The old man pointed with a thumb to the crates that compromised his view of the Bolshoi. In the pre-dawn light, the Count could just make out a whirl of activity above them. "Are those bees?" "Indeed they are." "What are they doing here?" "Making honey." "Honey?" The old man cackled again. "Making honey is what bees does. Here." Leaning forward, the old man held out a roof tile on which there were 2 slices of black bread slathered with honey. The Count accepted one and took a bite. The first thing that struck him was actually the black bread, for when was the last time he had even eaten it? If asked outright, he would have been embarrassed to admit. Tasting of dark rye and darker molasses, it was a perfect complement to a cup of coffee. And the honey? What an extraordinary contrast it provided. If the bread was somehow earthen, brown, and brooding, the honey was sunlit, golden, and gay. But there was another dimension to it, an elusive yet familiar element. A grace note hidden beneath or behind or within the sensation of sweetness. "What is that flavour?" the Count asked, almost to himself. "The lilacs," the old man replied. Without turning, he pointed with his thumb back in the direction of the Alexander Gardens. Of course, thought the Count. That was it precisely. How could he have missed it? Why, there was a time when he knew the lilacs of the Alexander Gardens better than any man in Moscow. When the trees were in season, he could spend whole afternoons in happy repose under their white and purple blossoms. "How extraordinary," the Count said with an appreciative shake of the head. "It is and isn't," said the old man. "When the lilacs are in bloom, the bees'll buzz to the Alexander Gardens and the honey'll taste like the lilacs. But in a week or so, they'll be buzzing to the garden ring, and then you'll be tasting the cherry trees." "The garden ring? How far will they go?" "Some say a bee'll cross the ocean for a flower," answered the old man with a smile, "though I've never known one to do so." The Count shook his head, took another bite, and accepted a second cup of coffee. "As a boy, I spent a good deal of time in Nizhny Novgorod," he recalled for the second time that day. "Where the apple blossoms fall like snow," the old man said with a smile. "I was raised there myself. My father was the caretaker on the Chernik estate." "I know it well," exclaimed the Count. "What a beautiful part of the world." So, as the summer sun began to rise, the fire began to die, and the bees began to circle overhead, the two men spoke of days from their childhoods, when the wagon wheels rattled in the road, and the dragonflies skimmed the grass, and the apple trees blossomed for as far as the eye could see.